Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We are reading from Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16. Today is our text 25.
थोड़ा बड़ा कर सकते हैं?
Okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
The Sanskrit.
It's fine.
Sanskrit part is gone. 1 second. There is no Sanskrit in this one. Anyway. Sorry. Okay, text 25.
Yeah, 25.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. I'll recite the verse 3 times and then text 25. Dharanyuvacha Bhavan hi Veda tat sarvam yanmam dharmanuprichasi chaturbhirvatasena padai loka sukhavahai. Dharanyuvacha Bhavan hi Veda tat sarvam yanmam dharmanuprichasi chaturbhirvatasena padai loka sukhavahai. Dharanyuvacha Bhavan hi Veda tat sarvam yanmam dharmanuprichasi chaturbhirvatasena padai loka sukhavahai. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dharani Uvacha Bhavan hi Veda tat sarvam yanmam dharmanuprachasi chaturbhir vartate yena padarloka sukhavahai.
Thank you.
Dharanyuvacha Bhavan hi Veda tat sarvam yanmam dharmanupruchasi chaturbhirvartase yena pader loka sukhavahai.
धरणी उवाच भवान् हि वेदात सर्वं यन्मान् धर्मानुपश्यति चतुर्भिर्वर्तसे येन पादैर्लोकसुखावहै. हरे कृष्ण.
हरे कृष्ण. धरण्य उवाच भवान् हि वेद तत्सर्वं यन्मम धर्मानुपृच्छसि चतुर्भिर्वर्तसे येन पादैर्लोका सुखावः.
Anyone else? Okay, we go for word. Dharani Vacha, Mother Earth replied, Bhavan, your good self, he certainly, Veda, no, that Sarvam, all that you have inquired from me, yet that, Mam, from me, Dharma, O personality of religious principles, Anuprithasi, you have inquired one after another, Chaturvihi, by four, Vartase, you exist, Ena, by which, Padahi, by the legs, Loka, in each and every planet, Sukavahi, Avahahi, increasing the happiness. Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. The earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you too were maintained by your four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. And the principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself. And the executor of such laws is Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satya Yuga. In the Treta Yuga, they are reduced by a fraction of 1/4. In the Dwapara Yuga, they are reduced to 1/2. And in the Kali Yuga, they are reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point. And then devastation takes place. Happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus, one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately return to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshiranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadyutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakhantamsa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveswari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vancha Kalpatarivasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavane Vyu Vaishnavya Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. Before I try to speak on this verse, I would like to take blessings and permission from all the assembled Vaishnavas. You can see Mother Sangeeta also there. Kavali Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I'll read the translation again. The earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull, O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you two were maintained by your four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Hare Krishna. So, till yesterday's verse, we saw the conversation, the dharma in form of bull was speaking. And today is the first time Dharini, Mother Earth, is going to speak. And in this verse itself, we can see like how she is presenting and like we can see her humbleness. She's not directly answering to the questions. She's saying, Bhavan hi veda tat sarvam. I mean, your good self, Bhavan, your good self certainly know everything, all that you have inquired from me. I mean, she's not posing herself like the knower, and she is directing it to Dharma. And then Mother Earth says, once you two were maintained by your four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. And we heard in previous verses that the situations of both Mother Earth in the form of cow and Dharma in the form of bull, like Mother Earth, cow is like very lenient, thin, teary, very sorrowful, pitiful situation. And then bull, Dharma in the form of bull, he's standing in one leg. And if we can even see like a simple table, like which has four legs. If there's one leg broken, then it cannot stand on itself. Like it's like all bumpy. But here, bull is standing on one leg. We can imagine how painful or pitiful it is. And so in this situation, we can see they both are concerned for the other one, not oneself. Like even though both are in such a pitiful situation, not concerned about oneself. Like Mother, the Dharma in the form of bull is standing in one leg, that is also hobbly. He's asking Mother Earth, like, what happened? Are you sick? Or all those kind. Are you missing someone far away? All those kinds of questions we saw already. And here, now Mother Earth starts speaking, saying, you are also standing on one leg. Like how painful it is. So we can see the Vaishnava quality, the topmost Vaishnava quality here from cow and bull here. What is that? That's the Paradukha Dukhi. And then we can relate to the Srila Prabhupada also, like who came here, like to America at the age of like very 69, 70. Instead of comfortably doing his bhajan at Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, which he could do it easily there, instead of traveling all the way with all those heart attacks, being cramped on that, what was that ship, Jaladutta. We can read this all in Lilamrit, how he suffered one after another, getting heart attacks, and there were not even a good space for him to stay. He was moving constantly, looking for a space. But he didn't look for his own comfort at all. And back to words of Dharini, once you two were maintained by four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. We already read it, the four legs of Dharma. If anyone want to say, what are the four legs of Dharma? Anyone? Recalling the four legs of Dharma?
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
They are not the legs of Dharma. They are the process.
So there were four principles.
There are four legs of Dharma. As like that is our four regulatory principles for following.
Yeah.
Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. We get confused with this. Yeah. Austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, and kindness or mercy or daya. So we already read in verse 20 a couple days back that Dharma was saying, I have lost my three legs and now I'm standing on only one. And then we saw, it was explaining the class that Dharma had four legs in Satya Yuga, and then in Treta Yuga, the one leg, tapasya or austerity, was almost gone from the population. So he was standing on three legs. And as it progressed to Dwapar Yuga, the cleanliness, Saucham, was gone. And then he had only two legs. And now as it progressed towards Disa is Kali, mercy is gone. We can see that. So that's why we can see here Dharma, he's hobbling on only one leg. That is truthfulness, and which is also diminishing day by day. And then Srila Prabhupada in his class on this verse says like, it's going to be zero. It's like diminishing every day. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport, in this purport, he writes the first line. He says, the principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself. and the executor of such laws is Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. We are not yet there, but in 6th canto, there is a conversation between Dharmaraj, Yamaraj, and his messengers in chapter 3. Actually, before that, the messengers, the Yamadutas, they go to bring Ajamila to Yamaloka for punishment for his sinful life, and they tie him, long story short, they tie him with rope and we're about to drag him or his soul. What happens at the same time? Out of fear, Ajamila calls for his son Narayan, and we all know what happens. The very beautiful Vishnu Dutas, they appear and they have this conversation, long conversation about religion and irreligion, and finally Vishnu Dutas, they cut the knot of that rope, and then after the arguments of that topics, and then in that argument, the Vishnu Dutas asked Yamadutas that they say, like, if you are actually the servant of Yamaraj, he is Dharmaraj. Yamaraj means Dharmaraj, who knows Dharma. So they say, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. And what is the process of punishing others who are the actual candidates for punishment? Like all those questions they ask to the Yamadutas. And they even, and then Vishnu Dutas add, like, are all karmis engaged in fruitive activities punishable, or only some of them? And then Yamadutas, they start replying in that, in it's in chapter 1. And then he says, he means the Yamadutas, they start replying that, the which is prescribed in Vedas, they are dharma, or called religious principles, and the opposite is irreligion. And they say they are, and they don't say that it's, I know that is dharma means this and other means this. They say we heard it from Yamaraja. And then other verses they say further, they say, like, the process of punishment for people in different modes, like they say, like, everyone who is in material world, they are under the modes of material nature, so they need to be punished. Even they are pious, they are in mode of goodness, they need to be punished according to their degree. All those things, that communication, that conversation goes on. And then Vishnu Dutas refute Yamadutas explanation of religion and irreligion. And then one of the Vishnu Dutas said, by following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, the sinful man, sinful men, they do not become as purified as by chanting once the holy name of Lord Hari, like Ajamila chanted Narayana. And then they further say that this ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, but it does not awaken devotional service compared to chanting of Lord's name. So this long conversation. And then Yamadutas, they feel so defeated and they go empty-handed. They cannot take Yamaduta because Vishnudutas freed him. And they go to Yamaloka and inquires and ask Yamaraj, like, how come we thought you are the master of, all those dharma palaka, the protecting religion or whatever, for the punishment and everything. We thought that you were the only one master, but how come there are many? So there is that questions that the Yamadutas put to Yamaraj. And in chapter 3, Yamaraj starts speaking. I think it is around 18-19 verse. He says this famous verse, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. And I will read the translation for that verse. This is very nice. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam navai vidu risayo napi devaha nasiddha mukhyasura manushyaha kuto nu vidyadhara charana dayaha. Translation: real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles. Nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, Vidyadharas and Charanas. So he gives the what is dharma means. he doesn't say what is real dharma here, but he says like it is enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'm not the, I'm the boss for you, kind of, but I have boss more, above me. In that purpose, Srila Prabhupada writes, when the Yamadutas, they were challenged by Vishnudutas to describe the principles of religion, Yamaduta said, they said what? Veda pranihito dharmaha. That was the Yamaduta's explanation. The religious principles are the principles enacted in the Vedic literature. But they did not know, however, that the Vedic literature contains ritualistic ceremonies that are not transient. That is Srila Prabhupada's words, but are meant to keep peace and order among materialistic persons in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada further writes, he says, real religious principles are nistrigunya, above the three modes of material nature or transcendental. And after that verse, and in the following verse of 2021, very famous one, Yamaraj, he says, I know the real religious principles, not only me, there are others also who once. Sorry for that. So in other verse, 2021, the verse, I'll read the verse, it's very nice verse. You also know that. Swayambhu Narada Sambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Talado Chanaku Vismo Balir Vayasakir Vayam Dvadasaite Vijanimo Dharmam Bhagavatam Bhataha Guhyam Visuddham Durvodham Yam Gyatvam Ritam Asmate. I will the translation. Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Grandfather Visma, Bali Maharaj, Sukadev Goswami, and I, Vayam, myself know the real religious principle. And then he says, my dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for him, is uncontaminated by the material laws of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But, he writes there, but if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated and thus he returns home back to Godhead. And in purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, what is the real religious principle? Because in verse 19, he said, the religious principle is enacted by the Supreme Personality, Personality of Godhead. And in 2021 verse, he says, this person, and including me, we know the real religious principles. But he doesn't say what. And then in purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, what is the real religious principle? For that, I'm not going to say, Srila Prabhupada will say, we'll hear from Srila Prabhupada. Okay. I'm going to play Srila Prabhupada saying what is the real religious principle. Okay.
The real dharma. The real dharma.
Sorry, is it audible?
It was audible, but it was low.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The real dharma. The real dharma is stated by God himself. Dharmantu sakshat bhagavat. You haven't got to learn from anywhere else, but from God himself. So that is explained very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mang. To surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is religion. Not only surrender, but to act as he desires, or you become a lover of God. This is first class religion. We have several times explained. Samai pungsang paro dharma, jato bhakti radhokhaji. That type of religion is first class, which teaches you how to become a lover of God. If you become lover, then your life is successful. Then you will do everything for God. Otherwise, you will simply question, why shall I do that? Why shall I do that? Why shall... That means there is no love. That is training. Just like a novice is being trained up and he has no love, so he will question, why shall I do it? Why shall I do? Why shall I do? What benefit I shall get? So many questions will be there. But when there is love, there is no question. So, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, after teaching so many things, yoga, jnana, karma, and so many other things, at last, Krishna says, Sarvaguhya tamam. Now I am speaking to you the most confidential instruction. What is that? Sarvadharman parittajya mamekam sarva. This is the most confident.
Krishna. So that is the real religious principle. So let's go back to our purport. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, I'll read from first. The principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself, and the executor of such laws is Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satya Yuga. He was in 4 leg. In the Treta Yuga, they are reduced by a fraction of 1/4. The austerity is gone. In the Dwapara Yuga, they are reduced to 1/2. Cleanliness is gone. And in the Kali Yuga, they are reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point. And then devastation takes place. And then he writes very wonderful line here. Oh, sorry, I should have shared the screen. And then he says here, happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus, one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately return to Godhead. So for this, I know we, every one of us in the call have like own experience of maintaining the principles despite all kinds of odds. But I'm going to read from His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami, his arrival address. He says, it doesn't matter if others follow or don't follow the religious principles, but we should not give it up and try to follow it to the best of our ability. Sometimes we might be put in so much difficulty that we might be tempted or provoked to break the religious principles. But even in under such situations, if we still hold on dharma and take shelter of Guru and Krishna, then that is the greatest act of courage, as well as the only way to be jolly now and forever. And he further says, we find this noble quality also in Bhishma Dev, when he was lying on the bed of arrows and talking to Pandavas after the Kurukshetra war. Just like the bull and cow, he did not mind his own pains, but felt for all the sufferings underwent by Pandavas and said they could survive all those testing times only because of their quality of Vipra Dharmachutasrayaha. It is in Srimad Bhagavatam 1, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 12. In his powerful words, Srila Prabhupada beautifully says in the purport to the verse that the secret of being always jolly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, as long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and is strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of the life. Hare Krishna. So the best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Okay. Actually, with this, I am ending my talk. but would like to hear if any of you have any experience of that maintaining principles despite all kinds of odds. One or two. I'm sure all of us have our own experience fighting with all those situations, trying to follow the religious principle or trying to follow the devotional services. Hare Krishna. We can see from Srila Prabhupada's life also, like I already said. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. Max A. Xavier.
Hare Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
To answer your question, one experience that I tend to have is when I visit family, and I kind of have to, mainly, like the diet, I have to kind of be very vigilant in making sure that the ingredients are very much in line with the regular principles. Yeah, it's really making sure that there's no like eggs and things like this. And yeah, I have to be extremely vigilant there, because when I'm living in the temple, it's so easy to just like, oh yeah, whatever you make, it's good to honor. But when I go home, it's like really, to be in a different mind state. And even yogurts, I found, will have, stuff in it, and like gelatin, and that's like made from animal products. So it's, yeah, that's one of those experiences where it was like more of a challenge to follow the regular principles.
Yes. Thank you, Baby. Any other experiences?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Swastika.
So one thing also that's being a parent and having to and making the endeavor to follow the principles is challenging, in the sense that there's so many things that kids want that are at odds with Krishna conscious principles, especially here, like in the West. It's a constant struggle to come up against that. Although, by the grace and mercy of Srila Prabhupada, and we've come a long way from like when we first came into Krishna consciousness to be able to, change so many habits and trying to train the kids and teach the kids. It's really a austerity and an endeavor to do this, but it's mercy. But I would say that that's one big challenge, is to maintain. So if it's just me, okay, I'm good. But then there's so much pressure from the kids. They want this, they want that, they want this. And then they're getting influenced from so many other places. And we have to keep trying and explaining to them, even though it's completely different than what all of their friends are doing, So yeah, that's just one aspect. Very challenging.
Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada says, that's the courage, valor to maintain our religious principles despite all those odds. Yeah. Somebody wants to share any more?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Very nice class. So, like experiences in the bhakti, in the devotional service, it's really challenging in the Kali Yuga actually, but we have to just try our best. We had, every one of us, have so many problems in the life, sooner or later, but we have to fully depend on Krishna, and that is the only shelter. And Srila Prabhupada also, because he's the founder Acharya, and he's actually guiding us through his books, through his lectures. And so this is Prabhupada's greatness, that whole world, so many people, millions and millions of people are following his instructions. And that's very great to see in the Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga is so degraded age. And we are reading that how the Kali broke the 3 legs the one leg left, which is truthfulness, but that's also where is the truthfulness in the Kali Yuga, everybody lies, So that's also fading away slowly. So it's not too much luck, but Harinam is the only shelter and we have to follow. That is the only hope, in the Kali Yuga, and we should just take full responsibility, take chanting it very seriously. And somebody put yesterday, about chanting in the Ben Salem group, it's very instructing actually. And that what during chanting, what we have to do, because there are so many things and we just sometimes chant casually, and especially getting up in the morning and chanting, that is the best thing. Otherwise, whole day we will have the japa beat in our hand, but our mind will be somewhere else, So it's better that many people are getting up, and those who are not getting, I'm just requesting everyone to please get up at least at 4:30. So between 4:30 and 6:30, everything can be done. And to get up early in the morning, the best thing is to sleep on time. Many times, we are so busy, so engrossed with different things. So by 9 o'clock, you have to sleep. So by 4 o'clock, you can get up, and 4:30, you can start chanting. So that is the best practice, we can cultivate. And by that, we can make Sri Prabhupada happy, Lord Krishna happy, and our life will be great that way. Even we just take the shelter of Na Harinam, because Harinam is Krishna himself. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for wonderful points. Yeah. Thank you so much. Acharya Prabhu, do you have any additional points?
No, sorry, I have nothing to add, but thank you for the nice class.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Okay. Anchara Chandra Prabhu, do you have any points to add?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very good class, as usual. I guess the only thing I'll add is going back to your question, you were talking about our struggles with the principles. And so oftentimes we confuse the principles with the details, right? So actually, the 4 regulative principles are actually 4 details to a single principle, which is to whatever you're doing, do it for Krishna. So oftentimes we find ourselves struggling with the detail part of that, finding ingredients that are even offerable and things like that. But an even deeper struggle, which is what we really have to focus on, is keeping that connection. So not only dealing with the proper ingredients, but the proper mood, the proper understanding, the proper consciousness in which we're doing all of these things. And so many of us don't really have so much of a struggle with the details so much, because they're kind of easy to follow as long as you regulate your life. But I think all of us do still struggle with that consciousness, because we still have this tendency, because of our conditioned nature, that we think we're the controllers and the enjoyers. And it's a tough habit to break. And so if we focus on the actual, what the principle is, and not get too distracted in the details, we can make a more honest assessment about where we truly are. And then we can make much more advancement, just understanding where we're at with it, and then understanding where we need to go with it. And so that's the only thing I would add. But everything else, such good points. That point you focused on toward the end of Srila Prabhupada's, it's such a powerful statement that he makes, and it's so important for us to really understand that. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
Class.
Yeah, I can't remember fully, but when we read that, the 64 principles of bhakti or links of bhakti, and the summarization point is like we follow all those points just to complete, or just to make one point. That is Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for that point. Okay, if there are no further discussions, then maybe we can end for today. Madhusubaradi or Dronacharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mother Shyamagori. Sorry for creating so much trouble for you today by not
Oh,
helping.
no, not at all.
But yeah, if there are no other questions, then we can end the class. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amma.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhasya.
Asindubhyo च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.